Welcome to the Abundant Vision Fundraising Podcast. Whether you are a seasoned professional or a first-time fundraiser, we have the advice you need to take your next step toward major gift mastery. I'm your host, Tom Dauber, President of Abundant Vision Philanthropic Consulting. Last week's conversation was a blast. I'm so excited to have you with me for this next segment. Let's get back to the show. You've been fundraising through all the big ones, 9/11, the tech bubble that you talked about, 2008, and there's probably a few more in there I'm not even thinking of.
There was like Black Monday in 1989 where the stock market lost
That's right.
12% of its value in one day kind of thing. It was the largest single day drop in the stock market since the Great Depression. This is like 1988 or 89, something like that.
What advice might you have to fundraising leaders, whether they're executive directors or chief development officers, or even just frontline fundraisers? What advice do you have for them about getting through one of those rough spots in the economy?
It's really easier to say than it is to do, but you kind of just have to stay the course. People's desire to support organizations that have made a difference in their life doesn't change depending on what the economic circumstances are. Their ability and their timing on how to do things is what changes. And so I know it's hard when you've got metrics and you've got numbers that you have to hit. I mean, I know that becomes incredibly difficult. And again, like I said, it's easier said than done, but stay the course. I mean, people still want to give. And so, that's where I think Plan Giving comes in to help if you think about it. And if you think, because I've always looked at Plan Giving as much more inclusive than exclusive. We used to have a joke at Carnegie Mellon that there was a period of time when people thought that the Plan Giving office was just major gifts for old people. And no, that's not really what it is. And there are things in Plan Giving that every major gift officer ought to have in their portfolio and have in their arsenal or their quiver or whatever analogy you want to use. You don't have to be an expert. I try to tell major gift officers all the time, I think if you can become an enlightened generalist, you're going to raise an awful lot of money and really have a great career and put yourself in a really good situation.
Boy, yeah, that's certainly the truth. I've seen that in my own career. I think we've talked about this before, but Colleen Garland sent me off to Robert Sharp's training back in 2006, like in my second year on the job, I think, with OSU. And it really helped me and set me up for a lot of success years back. Now, many executive directors and CEOs of nonprofits out there, they're just trying to meet budget. The idea of spending time and resources on revocable deferred gifts that may not come in for 20 years can be a hard sell for some of them. Make the case for why a planned giving program is important for a strong fundraising program.
And again, that's one of the things I do in my current role as a consultant and helping people to show why that's important. There is a professor at Texas Tech University, a fellow by the name of Russell James, and Russell has done, over the last decade and a half, has done a tremendous amount of research in this whole area. Now, Russell actually, truth be known, started out as a fundraiser. He started out as a fundraiser, then became a Plan Giving person, and then he became a very young college president at a very small place. And then he decided that, he'd rather just teach and research, and left a small college and went to Texas Tech, and he's a tenured professor and everything. But Russell has mined a ton of like IRS data. And Russell can prove conclusively, statistically, that organizations that actually accept non-cash assets, whether it's stock or real estate or a Steinway piano, a classic, 1965 Mustang or whatever it is, organizations that accept non-cash assets raise significantly more money than those that don't. And fundraisers that have the ability to talk to their donors about making gifts of those assets raise more money than those that don't. Statistically proven. This isn't like some old guy just saying, well, I've kind of observed. No, there's statistics that show this. And so one of the things that I did when I was at Carnegie Mellon, and I'm develop a little bit of a database myself, and it's not quite to the point where I have like what I would consider to be statistically significant data. One of the things that I did at Carnegie Mellon, and I'm gathering more data on, is look at the behavior of people that have actually died and left a charitable estate gift. And so I went back and I said, how far back can you go in the database of Carnegie Mellon? And they could go back, they could only go back to 1993. They made a system change in 93 and they didn't have enough money to get all the data converted. And it was back in the day when you had to keystroke a lot of stuff, and they didn't have enough staff to keystroke everything. And so they kind of drew the curtain and started at 93. So, but it goes back to 1993. And in that period of time, it was, I don't know, 252 people had died and left Carnegie Mellon in their estate plan. This is like from 1993 to 2020, so 27 years. And the amount of gifts from estates was a factor. So then I went back and asked the question, how much did each of those people give while they were alive? And I want to compare how much they gave while they were alive with how much they gave out of their estate. And the estate gift, the totality of the estate gift was a factor of 3x. I mean, it was the estate gifts were 3 times bigger than the totality of the lifetime. And so then I went back and we divided it up into gifts of, I stratified it just at 1,000 and above, 100 to 1,000, and 99 and below. And 47% of the people that left Carnegie Mellon a gift in their estate had cumulative lifetime giving less than $1,000. Now that means that 53% had more than $1,000, but still, I mean, you're talking 50-50 and the amazing thing to me was a full 20% of the people, the only gift they ever gave to Carnegie Mellon was their estate gift. They did not give one red penny during their life.
Really?
And so then I took the people that had given more than 1,000 or more. And I asked the question, okay, what was the single biggest gift that they made in their lifetime? And that could be a pledge, not just a one-time gift, but like their biggest pledge that they paid off over multiple years. What's the single biggest gift they gave during their lifetime? And compare that with how much they gave to the institution in their estate. 67% of the people, 2/3 of everybody that left Carnegie Mellon in their will that had over $1,000 of lifetime giving, the biggest gift they ever gave to the institution was theirs. So if you ask the question, why should I have a plan giving program? Are you willing to walk away from 2/3 of the people making their biggest gift through their estate? Now, you have to have the time and the patience and the energy to wait for these people to die, but, I mean, I know many people have been to San Francisco, or at least you've seen it. Transamerica has that beautiful pyramid-shaped tower in San Francisco. Transamerica is a life insurance company. I mean, you go through, look at the John Hancock building in Boston, in Chicago, or the Prudential building in Boston. Life insurance companies build big buildings because actuarial science works. And if fundraising organizations would allow actuarial science to work on their behalf and have the patience to do that, right? But the problem is, I need the cash today. That's the challenge. If you have the ability to have a long-term view and have the ability to wait, a plan giving program will produce significant amounts of revenue for your institution. It's just a matter of what's your patience level, what's your and I know some organizations need it today. I get that. And so honestly, I don't know that a plan giving program is for every organization. I mean, if you're really struggling to make ends meet, you need the money today. You don't need the money tomorrow. If you're in a pretty good place, you're leaving money on the table. I mean, what is every fundraiser's biggest fear? I've left money on the table. I asked them for 50 grand and they said yes without even thinking about it. It's like, damn, I should have asked them for 100, right? Right? Every fundraiser's biggest fear is leaving money on the table. And if you're leaving money in without a planning program, you're leaving money on the table.
Well, that was a pretty strong case for why a planned giving program is important there, Joe. Now, as you're out, consulting with organizations about improving and growing and establishing planned giving programs, I'm sure you're seeing a wide variety of organizations who are at different places in their maturity. The ones that you're seeing who are struggling, they're not doing a great job of pursuing estate gifts from their donors. What are the top barriers to success there? What are the things they're getting wrong that you're seeing?
They're not. So I'll go back. Let me go back and just go, I go back and set this up a little bit. So when I was in law school, and I took a class on like writing wills and trusts and estate planning, the professor said, "This is great." Obviously, I've remembered it all these years later. He said, when you leave this world, um, and you've spent your life and you've accumulated whatever you've accumulated. Some people have accumulated more than others, but whatever you've accumulated, when you leave this world, you can only leave those assets to people and organizations that help people. And then he would go into this. You can't leave it to General Motors or General Electric or General Mills or General Dynamics or General Foods. You can't leave it to a corporation. You have to leave it to people or organizations that help people. And you just mentioned Robert Sharp. At the risk of sounding like I'm dropping names, Robert passed a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And in the last 5 or 6 years of his life, Robert and I became pretty good friends and talked a lot. And I always really appreciated, his viewpoint on things. And one of the things that Sharp Company did in their seminars, all the way back to when Robert's father founded the company, is that they would say that if you think about your own estate plan or your own will, who do you leave money to? You only leave money to family and loved ones that have the equivalent status of family. You don't leave it to your next door neighbor. You don't leave it to a perfect stranger. You don't leave it to your office mate, unless that office mate is a loved one that has risen to the level of a family member. So if somebody leaves an organization, it leaves your organization money in there. Well, they've elevated your organization to the status of a family. So if you look at that and then you back off, and then it's like, so why would I leave money to a charity? And I would leave money to a charity because they made a difference in my life, or they made a difference in the life of someone I love. Whether it's a hospital that saved somebody's life, whether it's an educational institution that provided me the ability to do this, whether I am a historian and the local historical society, that is one of the things, whether I'm an animal person and it's the zoo or the humane society or whatever it is, or whether it's my faith is the central tenet of my life and I want to help the church out after I leave, whatever that is, whatever that spark is, that connection point, that's what organizations are missing. I mean, we're looking at, I need a $50,000 major gift today. Forget about the fact that person, and I work at a hospital, and you forget the fact that person's interested in talking to you because you saved his mother's life, right? And so I think that's what organizations miss. It's interesting you say this. I have two clients that are really interesting. One is an organization that's 148 years old, and it's an organization that has changed people's life. Their donors will tell you in a nanosecond what this institution meant. I have another organization that is only 40 years old, but they are developing an amazing plan giving program because they provide a service that people just gravitate to. This makes a difference in my life. They're only 40 years old. So it doesn't matter how old you are. It's what do you do to impact people's lives? And if you impact people's lives, then that's when people will start giving you money in their estate plan. And so that's what people are. That's a long way around to answer your question, but that's what's missing.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, it's very simple with major gifts. Are you making impact? Do you have a great vision? Those are the same sorts of things.
Right.
So if I'm a nonprofit leader, other than working on the impact piece, which you've already brought up, what are some simple steps I could take today to begin moving towards a healthy planned giving program?
There are some things that you could do. One of the things I try to tell people is there are a lot of things that you can do to have a plan giving program that's not going to cost you a dime, right? Because if you're that type of organization that you were just talking about and I was just talking about that makes a difference in people's lives, you're probably in somebody's will and you don't even know it, right? Because you
That's right.
made a difference in somebody's life, right? And the other thing is, if you look at the demographics and you look at birth rates and stuff, the number of people that don't have children are increasing rapidly. And so, where is that money going, right? So, one of the things you could do really simply is take your annual fund card, take your annual fund pledge card, and find space on your annual fund pledge card for two check boxes. One, I've included you in my estate plan. And two, I'd like more information on including you in my estate. You add those two things to your annual gift pledge card that you're already printing. It's not like the extra ink for that checkbox is going to cost you any more money. Now, you might have to pay a designer to redesign your pledge card, but other than that, it's not going to cost you a penny, and you've got a plan giving program. You don't need to worry about annuities and trusts and all that stuff. I mean, if you're just starting from scratch, that's where you need to start from. And it's as simple as that. And then everybody has websites and brochures or magazines or publications and stuff. It's really simple to put a little thing in, just a little blurb here or there. Again, it doesn't cost you any money because you're already doing it. All of a sudden, you have a plan giving
That's fantastic. I've been told that I might have been the sharp training that I went through that where I learned this, but I'd love to just hear you confirm it. About 90% of all estate gifts are like simple bequests or beneficiary designations.
I'm not
Is that
sure it's
true?
that big. It might be. It's not that far from being wrong. I mean, it's I'd say 80 to 90% of those are just, it's this the simple bequest. And then, it's, I mean, every once in a while you'll pick up, well, nobody picks up the newspaper anymore, but a news article will come up about the janitor that left $2 million to the school that he worked in. The single janitor that nobody knew had two pennies to rub together, and he had $2 million state, and he had nobody to give it to, and all of a sudden he makes a $2 million request. You can't make a living on those kind of people, but the point is that you just don't know where. It never ceases to amaze me how many people have way more assets than you think they have because they just don't show them.
That's very true. The first organization I worked for, first nonprofit, they almost shut their doors, I think in the 80s. And they were like 24 hours away from the board of trustees making the call. And lady died, and they got a call. Instead of calling to close the nonprofit down, they got a call from the trustee, and it gave them just enough capital to keep the place open till they could, get the fundraising up and going.
And there you go, right?
And, but the funny thing is for the longest time, they didn't solicit or seek planned gifts, even despite that being in their history. And I still stay involved with them a little bit, and I kept poking the director of development, and finally, I'm so proud of them. They not only do they have a planned giving program now, it's the society for their planned giving donors is named for that lady that
That's
kept them afloat.
great.
Isn't
That's
that a great
great because
story?
the woman that kept their doors open, right?
Yeah.
I had a similar story. A client of mine, it was a small college in Ohio, and they had a donor that was an alum, and this donor lived in Southern California, and you know, $100, $100, and then somewhere in the '90s it jumped up to $1,000, and it was $1,000 every year, just like clockwork. And one day, a letter came, and it was just addressed to the college. It didn't have anybody's name on it. It was just addressed to the college, and it was like one of those little envelopes that we all have that just barely a check will just barely fit in. Those envelopes you buy. They're not like letter envelopes or that next size down that a check fits in. Just an envelope like that, name of the college, stamp, no note, a check in it. You open it up, you pull the check out, and it's a check for $1 million. And the people in gift processing thought it was a joke. And it took him a couple of days to get a hold of the person. And he said, of course, this is free. What do you think? And so, of course, then the VP and the president, everybody, oh, we'll fly out to San Diego. And the guy says, no, do not come and see me. This is a test. I want to see how you do with this because I have other stuff I'm thinking about. Okay. Don't come see me. Nobody went to see him because he said, do not come. I do not want you to come. But they talked on the phone and email and blah, 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 blah. Guy dies about 4 years later, and it was a $20 million estate gift. The guy had bought apartments in Southern California in the 1950s, and there you go, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the same kind of thing. It's you just don't know. You don't know A, what people own, and B, you don't know how those annual gifts, the stewarding of those just consistent annual donors. I mean, I think to your point about how do you have a planned giving program, if you go back and you look at everybody, this is one of the things I do with my clients. I go back and say, okay, let's get a list of everybody that has given 10 consecutive years or longer. And then let's get a list of people that have given in 5 of the last 10 years. And then I want a list of people that gave for at least 10 consecutive years at some period of time and they quit. Because a lot of times those people that give every year and quit are people that have gone into like a nursing home or something like that. And it's not that they don't have any money. It's just that they're out of their rhythm kind of thing. If every organization would just run those 3 lists, and then of course you kind of age categorize it. You don't want to go to somebody that's 45 and do this, but you age categorize it. You've got a planned giving list without even thinking about it.
That's all the time we have today. But be sure to tune in next week to hear the next part of this exciting conversation. Now, if you've enjoyed this podcast, please be sure to subscribe and give us a 5-star rating on your podcast provider. I'm your host, Tom Dauber. Thank you for joining me as we journey together towards major gift mastery on the Abundant Vision Fundraising Podcast.